Hello, I'm Annette Kleinhens, Communications 101, and this is my process speech. Let me scan the audience.
Should we clap and cheer?
Yes. Okay, and make sure it's playing straight. Okay. If you have ever been to Bahio Mexican Grill in Columbus or Bloomington, Indiana, and admire the paint technique on the walls that add to the casual flair that Bahio is famous for, then you have been admiring my work. I'm Annette Kleinhens, and with my husband Larry, we've opened 3 Bahio Mexican Grill franchises. When we opened our restaurant, I had been doing co-finished painting for a number of years and opted to do all of the paint work myself. It was a painting technique called wall washing, and by the time I'm finished, you too will have the basics that you need to accomplish the look of Bahio at home as I demonstrate each step of this process. First thing that you need to do is to pick your colors. What you're doing with wall washing is you're mixing 2 colors together, one as a base coat and then one as a top coat that you will wash over to get different variations of opaque and translucency. So you need to pick 2 colors that you like the way they look, and you can play with them on a poster board to see how they kind of blend with each other, because the underneath color will show through at the bottom. Then you need to gather your supplies, gather your paint. Now for your base coat, make sure you use a flat finish, and that way the colors will blend better. You could use an eggshell if you like, flat looks the best. Get some glaze. What glaze does is it suspends the paint in a medium that allows it to retard the drying time, so you have more time to work with the paint, and you will have more variations of that translucency. When you mix it, you'll want to mix the paint and glaze of your top coat in 3-to-1 ratio, 1 part paint to 3 parts glaze. Okay, make sure you have brushes, rollers, painter's tape, because it's a messy job, plenty of drop cloths and ladders to get you to the spaces that you need to be getting to. First of all, you need to prep your surface. Do any patching, smoothing, sanding, priming. The texture of your wall underneath needs to be in good condition. You can't have a non-primed wall in certain places where you have touched up, and it will absorb the paint differently, and you'll see those big round places. So you need to make sure that whole surface is even. Okay, then the next thing that you will do, tape off, put your drop cloths down, and remove all electrical plates, the switch plates and the electrical covers. And then you will paint your base coat, okay? And that's where I am at this point here. Okay, then once you mix your glaze, you're going to remember as you do this process that you are going to have to maintain a wet edge. Now, let me explain what that means, and I hope that cleans up my work. A wet edge is the edge that divides the area that you have just done with the area that you are going to be doing. Now, before you do this, you need to visualize where you're going to start on the wall. Like, I'm going to work from this top corner down to the bottom corner and then back up in what I call H's. See how this is kind of like an H, and then another area I would come up and do an upside down backwards H to get that random effect, which is what you want. You want it to look like the wall just aged that way. And it works great in a Mexican restaurant, if you've been to Cheesecake Factory, it gives you that kind of an old world look. Now, oftentimes walls underneath are done in a texture and then painted over, and so that the textured lines in the mud and the drywall compound that they use to texture with gives you even more drama and dimension in your technique, and then the glaze will grab in those areas. Okay, so you're going to get this covered, and then, now, if you don't want as solid of an effect, you can do a crisscross. I'll show you that in a minute. Then you're going to let it dry for a little bit. You're going to take, this is a baby diaper, and it has been wet, and then it's been saturated somewhat with paint, and then it's ready to go, and it won't completely just pull it off. Okay? Now I want to stay away from that edge, and I want to work this in where those are blending. Now I've got a lot of paint on here, but as you can see, in the beginning, you will have a lot of lines that will show, but as that starts to blend in, now I did this covering a solid surface, so I'm going to have to work it quite a bit. As it starts to blend in, those lines will disappear. Now this is a much easier technique on a large wall where you can really get your arm going to work that wall. And the purpose is, of course, the random effect. Now, when I get to my next part, it needs to dry a little bit more. Then when I work it, those lines will disappear. When I go to the next section, I'm going to go right beside that wet edge. I'm just going to work in this middle section just for the sake of time. Okay? Once you get going, you can even just start applying with paint and work it over into new areas as you work them through. I'm not going to get too close to the edge. And you're going to blend in that wet edge. Okay? It is such a fun technique. You wouldn't think that it would be okay to smear paint all over your walls. But it is. And there is no science to it, which is what makes it a wonderfully fun technique to do. And if you can see that, you can see in these places when you go back over, those lines begin to disappear. And the more that's drying and the less lines you want to soften the touch of how you apply that paint. See, now here about these lines are pretty strong, and I kind of go over them. Here I'm doing a little bit of a dabbing in places. If you want more of a marbling look, you would dab a lot. But the washing is what blends and gives you that old wall, old world look. It's easier on a much bigger wall. But just remember, you've got to maintain a wet edge as you go. You could have the same festive atmosphere in your own space that encourages cuisine and conversation, just like Bahio. And if that cuisine causes you to overindulge too often, I have a remedy for that too, but that'll be my next speech. Good luck and happy painting. Have any questions?